Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me today. Look, if you've been trying to build or upgrade a PC lately, specifically in this first half of 2026, you already know we are right in the middle of one of the most turbulent, transformative periods in the history of gaming hardware. We've got two entirely new generations hitting the market, NVIDIA's Blackwell and AMD's RDNA 4 architectures. But spoiler alert, this is not your normal launch cycle. Today, we're going to break down the hard data, those real-world performance metrics, and the actual market realities to figure out exactly what on earth is going on out there.
Right out of the gate, we've got to ask the big, critical question driving this whole explainer. How exactly did the artificial intelligence boom completely break the 2026 consumer GPU market? The current chaos in hardware pricing is literally unprecedented, and the value proposition for standard gamers, it's been flipped completely upside down over the last 3 months alone. But hey, don't worry, we're going to untangle this whole mess together.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to break things down into 5 key areas. First, the context around the AI tax. Then, NVIDIA Blackwell's uneven performance. After that, AMD's RDNA 4 stepping up as value champions. Fourth, the DLSS versus FSR factor. And finally, our verdict on what you should actually buy.
All right, starting with Section 1, Context and the AI tax. We need to address the elephant in the room.
Let's start with a number that's probably going to blow your mind. $3,799. That is the actual street price right now for NVIDIA's flagship GeForce RTX 5090. Now keep in mind, that card carries a manufacturer's suggested retail price of $1,099, so it has nearly doubled on the street just due to severe supply constraints. I mean, talk about absolute sticker shock, right?
The reason that price tag is so astronomically high is because of what PCMag is brilliantly dubbed the AI tax. Basically, this defines the inflated consumer GPU prices caused by manufacturers prioritizing their super high-margin AI data center hardware over standard gaming graphics cards. You see, because AI data centers just have an insatiable demand for silicon right now, we're witnessing a phenomenon called wafer reallocation. The foundries are literally shifting their production lines away from consumer cards just to build more AI accelerators. And this artificial scarcity has very specific root causes. First off, there is a severe global shortage of GDDR6X and the newer GDDR7 VRAM. Because NVIDIA has basically transformed into a multi-trillion-dollar AI infrastructure behemoth, reports are indicating they're now allocating their extremely limited memory supply based on gross revenue per gigabyte. Naturally, that heavily favors enterprise products and their ultra-high-end tier. And to make matters worse for the mid-range buyer, production of older RTX 40 series cards has entirely ceased. So that traditional safety net we used to have of buying last-gen hardware at a discount, yeah, it's completely gone.
Moving right along to Section 2, NVIDIA Blackwell and its noticeably uneven performance.
Now we do have to briefly acknowledge the king of the hill here. The RTX 5090 is an absolute monster of a card. It boasts 32 gigabytes of GDDR7 VRAM and over 21,000 CUDA cores. Digital Foundry's deep dive showed that the performance gap between the 5090 and the 5080 below it is actually one of the largest we've ever seen in GPU history. But, as we established with that crazy $3,800 price tag, it is effectively a phantom product. For the mainstream wallet, it might as well not even exist. It's really just a technology demonstrator at this point.
Now, what's really interesting about this next point is, well, when a highly respected outlet like Gamers Nexus publishes a review literally titled, "NVIDIA is selling lies," you know we need to take a very close look at the underlying performance metrics for the mainstream RTX 5070.
Let's look at the hard performance findings because they are telling. For a street price of $629, Digital Foundry found the 5070 is essentially just a cheaper 4070 Super. You are getting a really meager 6 to 7% gen-on-gen uplift. Even worse, reviewers uncovered actual performance regressions in certain titles, meaning it performs worse than the last generation. And because it lacks a high enough base frame rate, using the new DLSS 4 frame generation actually introduces severe input latency overhead. Bottom line, the raw rasterization leap here is objectively poor.
Which brings us to Section 3, AMD RDNA 4 stepping in as the value champions.
AMD has completely flipped the script lately by focusing aggressively on value and traditional rasterization performance. And honestly, the results are undeniable. Tom's Hardware evaluated the new RX 9070 XT and outright declared it the smartest buy of 2026. Let's break down exactly how AMD pulled this off.
Comparing these specs really grounds things in practical reality. I mean, ask yourself, does paying the exact same street price of roughly $629 for less memory and worse performance make any sense? The RX 9070 XT smartly avoids the super expensive GDDR7, opting instead for 16 GB of proven GDDR6 on a 256-bit interface. And the performance findings are stark. Testing revealed the RX 9070 XT is roughly 8 to 12% faster than the RTX 5070 in pure rasterization at both 1440p and 4K resolutions. It even holds its own against the much more expensive RTX 5070 Ti, trailing by just a few percent while costing $150 less.
VRAM capacity is absolutely becoming a massive bottleneck in modern gaming. Both of AMD's mainstream options give you a distinct advantage here. Even the standard RX 9070, sitting at a street price around $595, features 16 gigabytes of memory. And it doesn't just win on capacity. The standard RX 9070 actually delivers 8 to 10% more aggregate performance than the RTX 5070, all while sitting in a cheaper price bracket. Plus, AMD closed the gap significantly in ray tracing, removing a major historical caveat to buying Radeon.
All right, let's look at Section 4, the DLSS versus FSR factor, because raw hardware numbers are only half the story.
The software landscape has shifted dramatically in 2026. NVIDIA launched DLSS 5 in May, shifting to full neural rendering. It uses AI to actually transform pixels, delivering some truly photorealistic lighting. It's incredible tech, for sure, but as we noted earlier, it's causing latency issues on those mid-range cards. AMD, meanwhile, launched FSR 4.1. This brings true AI-based upscaling to the RX 9000 series. And Hardware Unbox noted massive improvements in image stability and temporal consistency, which are areas where AMD used to lag significantly behind DLSS. So, the crucial point is this. AMD's historical weakness in upscaling is simply no longer a deal-breaker. Digital Foundry now calls FSR 4 a viable alternative to DLSS. By bridging this software gap, AMD ensures that when you buy an RX 9070 XT for that superior rasterization performance, you aren't sacrificing your visual fidelity to get it. You get the best of both worlds. Finally, Section 5, the final verdict. What to buy? Based on all the authoritative review consensus from the past 3 months, here's the final breakdown. Look, if your budget is completely unlimited and you want the absolute best of the best, the RTX 5090 is unmatched. But for the mainstream, the 1440p, or entry-level 4K gamer, AMD is the definitive winner. The RX 9070 XT is the standout choice. Conversely, the RTX 5070 falls squarely into the avoid category. Its 12 gigabytes of VRAM and a mere 6 to 7% performance gain make it a pretty poor long-term investment.
To summarize our core takeaway from today's explainer, AMD successfully exploited NVIDIA's top-heavy enterprise AI focus. By prioritizing generous memory allocations, really competitive pricing, and vastly improving their FSR software, they've delivered a massive win for standard PC builders who are, just trying to play games without taking out a second mortgage.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. As the AI industry's gravitational pull continues to warp semiconductor production and inflate these prices, will NVIDIA's relentless focus on AI permanently push traditional gamers entirely out of the high-end market? It's definitely something every PC enthusiast needs to consider moving forward. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next one.